What maybe did you learn through your experience of angel investing that you feel gives you a unique advantage or helped you start off maybe not at ground zero in terms of writing larger checks? Was it just like the actual throughput of how many deals you were a part of?
Yeah, because like so through it's a difficult business because none of the data, all this, the 99% of the information is never disclosed publicly of like what actually happens at companies, what the investment looked like at the time, how it turned out, all the internal things that go on. I mean, you really, like, if you just read kind of like the tech crunches of the world, you get just such a tiny sliver of what's actually going on. It's just the reality, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but that's just the reality. And so just having been, I think it's been 7 years now, I've been angel investing, just having, between my personal investments and Founder Collective, which is a seed fund that I co-founded, have seen probably on the scale of hundreds, if not thousands, of investment opportunities, and have made a number of those and seen how they played out, and just sort of, people talk about pattern recognition in this business, and just having had some of that pattern recognition, I think is helpful. Although, that said, like, there are a lot of people in this industry who've been doing VC their entire careers, and, like anything, I'm sure that's helpful, right? So it's still, for me, a pretty big adjustment.
So second question sort of on this topic broadly, just love to get your sort of initial thoughts on AngelList. I mean, I know they just sort of made a pretty big turn. Still going to take years to figure out, all the sort of nooks and crannies of it. But just your perspective, maybe one as a civilian, two as a former angel investor, and now three as a larger, VC.
Yeah.
What's your view on it?
I think one is super interesting. It's one of the most interesting things that's happened in startup investing in a long time, and I think it will be very powerful, as we've seen crowdfunding and everything from Kickstarter to all sorts of other interesting, Lending Club and all sorts of things like this. It's been a very powerful model. I think it's so early in it that it could take 5 to 10 years to kind of figure out what really works. You have the danger with a lot of investment models, and this includes angel funds and VCs. There's lots of opportunities to sort of introduce adverse selection into these things. So by that I mean, situations where people don't fully understand what they're doing, or don't have the right sort of vetting process, and you end up, building a mechanism that attracts the wrong people to each other and leads to bad outcomes. So, for example, you can imagine a scenario where the sort of doctors and dentists, as people say, the people that are sort of casual investors, become a heavy part of the funding of the backer crowd, and don't really know what they're investing in. And I have situations all the time where things go wrong, people have to raise more money, people shut down, and and I've seen this, for example, in my own investing, is like, you'll say you'll have 10 investors, 5 of whom are professional investors and 5 aren't. And let's say something goes wrong, the professionals are used to it, they're supportive, and sometimes the other people freak out, and there's, like, in the worst case, lawsuits, and in the other, whatever, or difficult conversations. So having seen that kind of already play out just in my own experiences, like, you take that and you magnify it. So I think there will be lots of interesting issues like that. There will be, like that said, I want to say, like, I'm very, very excited. Like, I would, if the next investment I'd make, like, it's up to the entrepreneur, but I would love to make some portion of it, something like on AngelList or something. I think it's something I really want to start exploring. And so, but I think it's early. I assume, like, I haven't talked to Naval about it, but I assume he would say it's early as well. I mean.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And there's so many regulations too, right?
The regulatory stuff. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And, like, at the limiting case, like, I mean, in some sense, you could say we do have a system of crowdfunding companies. It's called the public markets, right? And so they said, let's let people list this stock and sell it to anyone. And then they discovered over the course of 100 years and all the regulatory stuff that happened in the 30s that once you do that, there's lots of opportunities for companies to mislead people. And so then we developed a system where which we have until the Jobs Act, which is the bifurcated system, where accredited investors, which is a regulatory word for wealthy people, are allowed to do whatever they want. Unaccredited ones go through the public market. And the idea is the regulations protect the unaccredited investors. The theory being the accredited ones sort of buyer beware. They have money, they can afford to lose. And so they've developed all these regulations. And so like the worried case is that you start doing kind of crowdfunding of private startups. You start to discover their issues. You start to add regulations. The next thing you know, you have all of the burdens, the regulatory burdens that you have now on public companies. So part of the whole advantage of being a private company is you don't have to do that. You don't have to do your quarterly reports. And you don't have to do auditing. You don't have to do the Sarbanes-Oxley and and is that sort of like, is there a happy medium, I guess is the question?